Today is August the 5th, 2019. My name is Tanya Fincham. I'm with Oklahoma State University, and I am in the Paul Miller building today to interview Gina Noble, who is the Associate Professor of Professional Practice and the Associate Director of Undergraduate Studies.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for being with me today.
Absolutely.
Let's start with the beginning. Well, I should back up and say this is part of our O State Stories project, so thank you for letting me come
Absolutely.
today. Let's begin with learning when and where you were born.
I was born in 1963 in Joplin, Missouri.
Okay, do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have one sister, and she was also born in Joplin.
Older or younger?
She's younger, 3 years younger.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about your parents.
My mother and father, my father is deceased, but he was an entrepreneur and thought of himself as a cowboy his whole life, and he was not. But he owned horses and provided a great life for my sister and I. He was not college educated, but wanted to make sure. He and my mom did. Dad, their 2 daughters went to college, and so my dad owned a used car lot, and he got me through college on out-of-state tuition.
Wow.
And he was a hard worker and a really good man. My mother is a college professor, or was. She's retired now. She worked in health and physical education, and so she taught physical education teachers how to teach. And she did that until she retired. My whole family were all golfers, so when I'm with my mom in San Diego, it's where she's lived for quite a long time, and my stepdad, we play golf, and my dad played golf, and I grew up with golf. So
any holes in one?
My mother has had 2. I have had 0.
There's still time.
0. There's still time, yes.
What do you normally shoot?
I have a very large handicap,
Okay,
and I just say,
good
it's just for fun. If I could play more often, it might be a little bit lower.
What did you play in high school?
I did.
You did?
I did, yes.
So let's back. Where did you go to elementary school?
I went to elementary school at Duquesne Elementary in Joplin, Missouri.
Okay, and then middle or junior?
Junior high was East Junior High School, and high school was Parkwood High School. Parkwood High School was the building that was blown away in the Joplin 2011 tornado, that whole area. So it's still Parkwood High School, though, and it's rebuilt now. So
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 1981.
At that point, did you have any idea what your ultimate goal would be career-wise?
I never even thought about being a public servant. I had hopes and dreams, and I knew I was going to go to college, but I didn't.
Well, why?
Back then, I didn't know.
And why OSU?
I visited 6 or 7, it was Big 12 back then, Big 12 schools. And actually, OSU was the last one to visit, and I'd already made up my mind. I thought I was going to go to Missouri or to Kansas. And then I came here, and my mom said, I don't remember this. Back then, we didn't have cell phones. You called from a payphone, and I told my mom to accept it that day if I called her. And I called her, and I said, I'm going to OSU. And she said, what? Oklahoma State? And I said, yes. And she said, It was the best decision I ever made, or one of them.
What swayed you? Do you recall?
The friendliness of the campus, truly. I was with a friend who was visiting here with me, and we both decided to come here. And we'd both traveled to all these other schools together, and it was the culture and the campus and the beauty. And I was only three hours away from home, but I was 3 hours away from home. So anyway.
And where did you live?
My first semester. Is that what you're talking about when I got here?
Yeah, when you got here.
I was supposed to live in Bennett Hall. It wasn't air conditioned back then, and it was not the Graduate or whatever it is now. It was not then. And I was on the 5th floor, And I joined a sorority. I went through Rush, which I really didn't even know what that meant. But my mom didn't get to do that because my mom educated herself when I was in 6th grade. So she never had the college experience and wanted me to do that, and told me I was going through Rush, and I didn't argue. I just did whatever she told me and ended up pledging a sorority. So the sorority had one opening for a freshman to live, and you had to write an essay. And either I was the only one who applied, or I wrote an okay essay because I got to live in the sorority house my very first year, which was a real blessing because I got air conditioning, and I didn't know anyone here, so that was really good for me.
What's your word?
Yeah, I was an Alpha Chi Omega. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, in high school, did you have a favorite subject?
I did. Language arts probably was my favorite subject.
And the guidance counselor come into play any?
I will tell you something. The guidance counselor told me that I should probably consider a technical school because I'd probably not make it through high school or make it through college. Based on my scores, I didn't know scores were important. My parents didn't know. I went and took them the day after senior prom, and I didn't do as well as I should have, for sure. And I never took them again because I didn't know that was important. It's just how you grow up and what you're counseled with, right? And look at me now.
Did you go back and say, look here?
No, but I think about it all the time. And when I came here, when I graduated, I thought about it. I wanted to go back then, but sometimes people are just wrong about you, and you can't let what their impression is of you define your life. And I didn't. But I thought about it a lot, and it made me stronger. And when I became a city councilor, I thought about that. And when I became mayor, I thought about that. Some people are just wrong. Don't ever let someone tell you when you're that young what you can't do. It's better if you tell them what they can't do.
Did that play into your motivation any, or do you think you were just motivated anyway?
I think it played in a little bit. It was hard enough in the early, it was 81. Women were going to college, yes, but you were still expected, probably to go to college and come home and raise a family. That was the norm, or teach, or be a nurse.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do any of those things. I didn't want to be a teacher because my mom told me to be a teacher, so I wanted to do anything else, and I thought I'd be advertising or broadcasting, which was my first degree. You just never know. You just never know what you can do and what your degree will lead you to. But most people don't even work in their degrees, or, it's just part of what they do. So never let people define you, and don't define yourself by things that make you comfortable. Think every time you think of something and it makes you uncomfortable, think, I should do that, or I should think about that, or I should give that more consideration. It could be in anything in life, but things that make you uncomfortable are the things that make you grow. So.
Well, what was your toughest class your freshman year?
Oh my goodness. Math, I'm sure. I'm sure it was. I don't really remember.
Okay.
I don't really remember sweating over it too much. But
how did you register back then? Probably.
It was standing at the registrar, and you had to have your paper, and you had to move in the little line. And I was just talking about this weekend with a college roommate, and I was telling her it's not like that anymore. Now they do it online, and the biggest stress they have is it opens at midnight or something, and so. They're all up at midnight anyway, so that's the biggest stress, is I have to wait till midnight to enroll on my computer. And we were laughing about that because it was quite the ordeal when I was here to enroll. It was a half-a-day project.
Stand in line.
Yes. So, and you didn't always get what you wanted, and you better know something you wanted right then and there. So, very different.
Was PE required at that point?
Yes, and I took the best PE classes here. Well, I don't know if it was required. Maybe I took them as, electives, but I took this weightlifting class that was awesome. And I still remember his name, Jerry Palmieri. So he was the weightlifting coach for football players, I think. And that was great. And I played badminton when I was here, and I just have to brag a little bit because because I don't usually, and because my son makes fun of me mostly. I was a badminton champion here.
Yay!
And I taught at the Colvin while I was here. I taught slimnastics, which that used to be a class, and aerobics, which we still do.
I'm thinking Richard Simmons, yes.
Yes, and I taught for the city of Stillwater in gyms at high schools when I was going through college. So I always worked while I was going through college, but I had fun work.
You were busy.
I was busy.
Did you carry a full load up?
I did. My dad and mom said 4 years. You're done.
So,
And so I took that to heart, and I never flunked a class, and I never dropped a class, I don't think, and I got there in 4 years. But a lot of people do that.
And you didn't choose to miss too many, huh?
No. Back then I just didn't even think that way. I'm sure I did miss a class if I was sick, maybe, but now it seems to be more of a choice. It wasn't back then, or we didn't, to my knowledge, we didn't really skip classes. So just difference.
Well, at what point did you pick your major, and how did that happen?
I picked chemical engineering.
Uh-oh.
And I went and took their entrance exam, and I walked out and told my mom, I don't want to be in chemical engineering anymore. And so I picked, I believe I picked advertising. I ended up majoring in broadcasting, but I took advertising classes as well. So I liked to write, and I liked the creativity that this department would have offered. So I chose it early. It was before, I never switched my major. That was before I even enrolled, that I was going to be chemical engineering. And then I found out, that's really not my cup of tea. So.
Did you have an advisor that helped, or a mentor that got you through?
No, I don't. I really don't remember. Now I look at our advisors. They are so awesome. They do such a good job. I do remember meeting with an advisor. I don't really remember the counseling as much. I really wish that I really had more mentors when I was young. And I think about that a lot today. And that's why I'm a mentor. Because I wish I'd had one.
Well, if you had to name one, who do you think yours would be? It doesn't necessarily have to be a professor, but your mom or whoever.
Oh, goodness. My mom was a big influence because she went to college and told me I was going to college, didn't give me a choice, and I didn't even think about it. I just, obeyed my mom. And she probably, with my dad's help, but my dad didn't go to college and maybe didn't think it was as necessary, but was willing to pay for it. So my mom, bless her heart, and I still thank her to this day for the doors she opened for me and for opening up possibilities and opportunities I never even thought of as a little girl. And, that's important.
Do you want to say her name?
My mom's name is Pam Martin Evans, and she lives in San Diego, and she's a wonderful, active person to this day. So,
Do you know what triggered her to go back at that day?
She always wanted to go to college, and her parents told her to get married.
Okay.
That's the way it was back then. And she left my dad, but she was 18, and so she wanted to go to college and didn't get to. My aunt was another mentor, and her name is Cheryl Martin Eade, my mom's sister. And Aunt Cheryl went to college right away, didn't get married, and traveled not all over the world, but was a traveler of the world. And she used to always bring me back these little wooden dolls from different countries, and I would put them on a shelf. And that's how I knew about different countries. I hadn't, really studied. And Aunt Cheryl got her PhD. Aunt Cheryl ran for Congress in San Diego and is considering it again if the person who is currently in office doesn't vote to impeach Trump. So I'm making a timestamp here. Aunt Cheryl says that she will run again just to challenge the person in office because she feels very strongly.
So you got to see both.
But I have very strong women. My grandmother's still alive. She's 99. Wow. She lives in San Diego with my mom and my aunt. They all live separately, but Nanny. I grew up next to Nanny, so every house that we had, her and Poppy were right next door to us. That was wonderful. That was, I still talk to her several times a week. And
did she come to Campus City to visit you?
She did. Nanny? She did. She took pictures when I pledged my sorority. Her and Poppy were here. Nanny and Poppy were everything for me. So from sports to ballet to every dance recital that I know Poppy didn't want to go to, nor did my dad. I know that now. And you don't really realize that till you have children and then you do things for them. And so I had great parents. I had great grandparents, and I had a great aunt who all influenced me.
Continue to, I'm assuming. Yeah. So you would have graduated, if you came in 81, you would have graduated
85.
85, so 4 years and do you remember graduation day?
I do. And my parents were divorced by that time, and so both sets of my parents were here. My dad got married on that day and then drove here. So this was his honeymoon, Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I packed a car up I think it was that day, and I moved with 2 girlfriends to San Diego. Wow. We drove to San Diego, and my grandparents drove with us. So they led the way, and we followed them because my aunt lived out there at that time, and we were going to live in San Diego.
Bold step.
And wouldn't change anything. Yeah.
Okay, so take us through your career then.
Okay, so did not end up working in San Diego where I wanted to. You had to be an intern in broadcasting for a year for free before you could work, and I couldn't afford that, and so I took any jobs I could. I sold timeshare. I was never successful, so I didn't hurt anyone. I was a waitress. I cried every night because it just wasn't for me. I moved back. I played out there, and I moved to Denver where I got my first real job, and I worked for a magazine that published every week. And pretty soon after that, I moved back to Joplin where my parents were, and I took a job. And I really call that my first real job. And it was with a magazine by 2 entrepreneurs in Joplin. It was called In Joplin Metropolitan Magazine. I took the job, I think I was 23, and I was the distribution manager, and that sounded so important. It really meant I delivered magazines, and I talked to vendors about putting our magazine where they needed to be. And on the side, they would let me write articles, and they would let me sell advertising, and so I did all of that and got some experience, and I saw a job opening in public relations at a hospital. Mm-hmm. My stepmother happened to be a nurse at that hospital, as did, I think, both of my stepsister and my real sister were nurses at that time, and they worked there. Maybe they worked there. I don't remember if they worked there yet, but I took a job as a PR person at a hospital and started working with Children's Miracle Network. and I fell in love. I fell in love with nonprofit work. So started working, did that for a few years, and saw a job opening in Tulsa, working for a Children's Miracle Network Hospital, doing the same kind of stuff, working for the foundation. Moved to Tulsa, worked for Children's Medical Center. It's no longer there now, but it was then, and it was for psychiatric and physical disabilities. And back then you didn't have those kind of hospitals and genetic testing, which in the 80s, it was late 80s, middle 80s, you didn't talk about that much, but we had that. And I think that's where I cut my teeth. I ended up being promoted to a vice president of the foundation. I worked with volunteers and donors and doctors and the community, and I did all kinds of fundraising. We worked with the Tulsa Drillers, and I did golf tournaments, and we did the Ben Hogan Tulsa Open, and the Nike Open, and we ended up being a pretty big venue. And Tom Lehman was one of the early golfers there. I think he's probably on the seniors tour now. But anyway, I got really involved with golf tournaments and charity tournaments within the hospital, and met my husband, got married, had a baby, and wanted to stay home with him for a while. So I did. And after being home with my son's name is Braxton Noble, I have one child, and he just graduated from Oklahoma State University this year and started his career. After I'd been home with him for a couple of years, maybe after a year, I started working on my graduate degrees at OSU Tulsa, and ended up moving here so I could do it more quickly. And they asked me if I wanted to work for just 1 year teaching here. If I would just fill in for a teacher who had quit at the last minute. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've never even thought about that. But I was divorced by then. And I had, my divorce was final the last semester of my graduate degree. And my son was 4 years old, and it was a really, really difficult time. And I thought, I can't quit now because I'm raising a child by myself now. I assumed I would be. And I moved home to Joplin with my dad after I graduated because I didn't have a job then. But I had been working in this building for a couple of the professors as a graduate assistant. And I got a job 2 weeks after I was in Joplin from the then director here, Dr. Paul Smiak. And he said, would you like to teach for us for 1 year? You had really good evaluations in your labs that you taught, and someone left, and would you like it for a year? And I said, absolutely. Because it gave me hope, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can do this on my own. And it was a hard time. And that was in 2002, and it is 2019, and I'm still here.
You're still here.
I'm still here.
Was it hard making the transition from being a student to being in the faculty role?
Yes, very much so.
But
I guess when you don't know things, you don't know to worry about them. And my first day, this was my office. This is where they put us. And my first day, my desk was actually on that side. I came to work. I was so nervous. And I had a kidney stone attack, and I didn't know it. I didn't know what it was, and I knew that I thought I was going to have it was almost as painful as childbirth. And I laid on my desk right here and took deep breaths, and I went down and I taught class my very first day with a kidney stone attack. I'm not saying that because I'm any kind of hero. I was not a hero. I didn't know what was going on. I should have been in the emergency room. But I wanted this job so badly, and I wanted to make a good impression. And I thought, a little backache isn't going to hurt me. I must have pulled a muscle or something. And anyway, I did it, and I'm still here.
What did you teach?
media in a diverse society. I taught 4 classes that semester, so I don't remember. I think campaigns, and they were all 4 new preps, and yeah, it was. And my son was in pre-K, and I had to hire someone to pick him up from pre-K, and there were these wonderful girls that knew, or young women who knew people in sororities, and so I hired a sorority person to pick Braxton up after school, and she would take him to the sorority. He was 4 years old, and she would take him, and all the girls would pay attention to him, and he loved it. And so it actually ended up being a great thing, and it made him very sociable. So it was all good.
Things seem to happen for a reason, don't they?
Yes, they do.
So you could be you didn't have to have a PhD to teach in the program.
No, and I thought you did. And I thought it would definitely just be a year, and then they asked me to stay on again, and I was visiting, and no, we have you do not. This is you have to have professional experience if you don't have a PhD, and I had quite a bit of experience, and so that worked in my favor. So I still don't have a PhD. I'm still here.
Don't necessarily need one, then, unless you just want one.
Right, and if that's your area of interest, and if you have an area of research you really want, I really like teaching, and I really liked what I did before teaching, and so it's kind of fun to make everything that's applicable in the communications world and to teach students about it. And I thought I'd maybe burn out, and I'm still here. It's my favorite thing to do, is to be in the classroom and to see the students. Yeah.
It'll be your mother say, how about getting a PhD or DDD?
She used to say things like that to me, but she doesn't anymore because she just says, I belong in the classroom. So.
Okay, so 2002. And then switching gears a little bit, when did you get interested in public office?
When I got mad in my neighborhood. Truly. I didn't really pay much attention to public officials. They do their job. You get your electricity, you don't think about it. Your water, and you have nice streets to drive on. You just don't think about it, or I didn't. And a developer wanted to develop land behind my neighborhood, and I was the first person in my neighborhood. It was I actually bought my house when it just had a concrete slab because I wanted to move my son to a different school district, and he was going to be in first grade. And so I bought my house. I'd never bought a house. I watched it being built after I'd already bought it, and that neighborhood means something to me. I still live in that neighborhood. I still live in that house. It meant something to me. It was empowering to buy my first house, and my grandparents helped me, and my aunt helped me. She was here when I decided to do that. When I felt really strongly about moving my son to Skyline Elementary, or moving my son not to Skyline, to Richmond Elementary. And they just said, well, buy a house. And I never even thought of that. I rented, and they helped. And got him over there, and I was proud of my neighborhood. First person in there, and still there to this day. I know my neighbors. And a developer, and we had a field behind us, and to be quite honest, the nice man who owns that acreage, he did have a right he does have a right to develop it. We weren't trying to make him not develop, but we didn't want college apartments behind us, and that's what they wanted to do. And we already had college apartments just across the field. Aspen Heights had just been built, and we knew that while Aspen Heights looked nice, that there were a lot of police reports from Aspen Heights, and it was brand new. And fortunately, in my neighborhood, they're single-family homes under $200,000, and several professors lived there. I had professors, a single professor woman on my left and my right at that time, and throughout the neighborhood. And we got this notice in the mail that none of us had ever seen or heard anything, and it was about a hearing to discuss what was going to be built there. And I don't think our HOA really even worked very hard then, anyway, I sent out an email just to these people on an HOA list that I didn't really know, and said, we should talk about this. What does this mean? And 5 of us got together, all professors. And we decided to fight city council and to go to that city council meeting, and none of us knew where it was or what time it was or what we should wear or anything. But we did it together. We worked as a team, and we had our scripts, and we knew what we were going to say and why we didn't want a 3-story apartment building over our fence. And it could have been 20 feet away from the fence. It could actually have been closer than that. And so we just didn't think that was right. We were raising our children there, and there would be people looking right down at you. Didn't like that idea, and knew that there had been a lot of crime at Aspen Heights and at some other places that were pretty close to where we were. Started doing research. What do professors do better than research? And I'm telling you what, these people I worked with, wow, they were wonderful, and I'm still friends with them. They were awesome, and they put together a presentation for when we went up there. And this was before drones and before everything else, but we had this really smart guy who, I'm not even for sure what he worked in, but he did overhead aerial flybys and mapped it all out and showed how close it would be and did drawings. And we presented all of that to city council. And we won. And not the first time. And I didn't really like how we were treated at city council back then. And so we ended up having to go again because they re-voted or something. And it was odd. And so we had to go back. And so we reasserted what we had said at the first one, and we ended up winning. And by like a 3-2 vote. And during that time, we were called low-income renters by a city councilor. Not only was that offensive, it was not true, and that wasn't the offensive part, being called low-income or renters. That's how they thought that they could just vote over us, because we were just low-income renters. And this was a neighborhood full of single-family homes that were affordable and new. And it's still one of the only neighborhoods in this town that have nice homes for that price. They go the day you sell them in my neighborhood. That made me mad. When we were called low-income renters, and by one person, we were definitely respected by most of the people on city council. But anyway, I went home that night and I thought about it, and I thought, they have a really hard job, those city councilors, and I wonder what they really do. They must all be paid, and the city pays them all to do this. And the next day I mentioned it to one of my friends that, one of these days I might run for city council, because I didn't like how we were treated, and there were 5 men on that. There weren't any women. And he said, well, what do you know about it? And I said, absolutely nothing. And I still think I could do a pretty good job. And he said, did you know one of those men are getting ready it's going to be election in 3 months? You want to run? I said, well, no, not now. And he said, okay. Called me back the next day, and he said, you should run. You should run. That's how I ran for city council. And I was the first woman on city council in a long time. There have been women on city council, but it had been quite a long time. The first night I was told by one city councilor, former city councilor, it's probably better, one of the men, because I was the only woman, it's probably better if you don't speak for about 6 months. I said it's 6 months. But just smile. So the first night I smiled and I talked. And I don't remember what I said, but I talked, and I thought, no one is going to tell me when and when I cannot talk. That's ridiculous. And now there are 3 women on city council out of 5. And it's been like that for a long time. So I'm proud of that.
Well, what did you do to have to campaign? What kind of campaign did you run? I mean,
my friend Kevin Fowler, who is now the Bank S&B, or it's not Bank S&B anymore, it's Simmons Bank. He's the president of Simmons Bank. He was the vice president of Bank S&B, and he was my son's coach in everything, and just this wonderful family. And Chris Fowler's one of my best friends, and they still are to this day. Our kids grew up together, and Kevin ran my campaign. He was my treasurer and my, just kind of my everything. And another former mayor helped me. His name was John Bartley, and he had great advice, and I still talk to him to this day about his advice. Just there are good people in this town who care about this town, and I think that's, I hope I'm considered one of these days to be one of them, but I consider there's a whole bunch of people in this town who are really good people.
what did you have to fundraise?
I did, but Kevin did it for me. I never touched any money. I went to the events I was told to go to. I spoke where I was told to speak. I wrote my own speeches. I would run them by Kevin and Chris to say, does this sound okay? I had a bunch of friends here who would help me. I had a friend who developed my logo for me. He teaches here now. His name's Tim Jessel. And he developed my city council and my mayor visual stuff. And Bobby K. Lewis, who works here at OSU, she's an associate dean. She helped me with, I think, with wording and just with campaign advertising and with my advertising that I had to do, because it was kind of just a hands-on. I did everything. I wrote everything myself. Bobby K did the advertising. My son, who was 16 then, well, he wasn't able to drive yet, but he stapled all of the signs together with his football friends. It was very grassroots, and it was all in my spare bedroom. So that's how we did it.
Did you have a slogan?
No slogan.
Do you know how much you won by?
The first time, I don't remember exactly. I just know it was by a nice margin.
Did you have a watch party?
I did have a watch party because that's what they told me to do. I've never been to a watch party, but we had it at Hideaway. And I remember when I won, I really wasn't expecting to win. My mother, my grandmother, and my aunt flew in here from San Diego that night, and we had it at Hideaway, and my son was with us. And I told them, we were at my house, I said, I did this just to get their attention. I wasn't going to win, and I don't think I will. And don't be upset. Don't be upset when I don't, because you know how family is, and my family's really, I can do no wrong to my grandmother, and she would take offense to it. And then I ended up winning. I really was shocked. And then I spoke way too long. I still think about that. I wish I hadn't spoken so long at that. I wish I just hugged everybody, which I think I did, but I probably thanked people too long. Anyway, had a watch party.
It's a volunteer thing, is
It's
it?
volunteer. No, you don't. Yeah, city councilors and mayors. It depends on what city you're in and what kind of government system. We are a weak mayor system, so it's all volunteer. You do get a little stipend just to help you, and it's $50 a meeting for up to 3 meetings. So that pays your dry cleaning maybe for a month, It wasn't about that though. In fact, I was shocked that we got paid anything. I'd never looked that up because I hadn't thought about that. I didn't care about that. So
you didn't have to give up your day job.
No, don't give up your day job. You will not survive if you. And that's the thing about politics. But well, anyway, mayor gets $100 up to 3 meetings a month. But that's it. And you have way more meetings than 3 a month for city councilors or mayor. It wasn't about that. But, and I'm sorry, say what you were going to say.
That's okay. Were there some particular issues that came up while you were on the council? Not as mayor, but we'll get to that in a minute. But as council.
Yes. The issue of my neighborhood came up again, which was, you kind of have to step back and you say, do I recuse myself? But you don't, or I didn't, because you are a citizen. You are a volunteer. You volunteered, you ran, you got elected, but you're still a private citizen. And you still have a right to voice. Now, I never did anything just because I thought it. I listened to what people thought, and I voted that way. But that, that was difficult, and it was difficult to not be biased and to listen to both sides because I had a new role and I had to step out of neighborhood Gina and go into city councilor Gina. And so, that was hard. And I asked the attorney if I should recuse myself, the city attorney, and they said, no, you don't have to at all. And I think the vote ended up being 5-0. I mean, it wasn't that I did anything, but however we voted on whatever, but they didn't get it again. So soon after that, the city council made some new ordinances that college housing that was tall had to be in a certain zone, which was close to campus. And so we made that was part of what we did. Pat Darlington, still on council, she helped with that a lot, just to create places and to be more consistent. And that's a better planning way anyway for the city, we thought. And glad we did that. So don't have to worry about that anymore. It's rezoned. That land is rezoned now.
Okay, and then at some point you decided, okay, I might as well try for mayor, or did someone twist your arm? Or
well,
you weren't the first female one. I think there's...
No, we had Micah Smith was one. Is it Mike Smith? But it was Henson. Yes. So I saw her picture hanging up. She was in the early 90s, late 90s. But she had been the last female, I think, that had been on the board. Anyway. And then we had Chris somebody. There was another... Anyway, 2 female mayors and pretty spread apart as far as years.
So.
Yeah, absolutely doable. Absolutely. So, and I thought going into this, boy, those people at City Hall, they must be my enemy because no, not at all. I found out that those City Hall people were really, really hard. I respect the heck out of them for what they do and how much, and especially city manager. And I think one of the things I got to, myself, the mayor and the city council got to choose a new city manager, which doesn't happen that often. And it's really important because the city manager is who really runs the city day to day in the weed stuff, And city councilors we just look at the big picture. We're not in the weeds. And that really reshaped how I those people are still my friends. They're just hardworking police, fire, electric, just everybody who works there. I can't name all the departments, but big hearts, and not fair just to be labeled as lazy, government or whatever, which is probably things I said before I met them. I can't say that I did for sure, and I know it wasn't in public, but anyway, they're not, and they care about Stillwater. It's really cool.
So which one said run for mayor, Gina?
My son.
Oh, your son.
My son said it because I ran again. I got a little upset by something, and I was not intending on. I was intending on serving as city councilor until I ran out, and then my son would have been graduated, and I'd move on to something else. And then John Bartley's term was up. He couldn't run again, and someone was going to run who was also on city council, but no one else signed up. So this person was just going to walk into this office without being elected. And I didn't agree with everything that this person thought. And this person had been a city councilor for a long time. Was a good man. I just thought maybe there were maybe some other ideas that could be explored. It didn't need to be the same old, same old. And I think a lot of people must have felt that as well. Because I didn't win mayor I don't think as handily as I did the other one, but I won, I think, by substantial. It wasn't close. There was no recount. There was no call for a recount. It was, I won. I didn't think anybody should have a mayor, whether it be me or anybody else, just walk into the position and sign up for it. And because no one else signed up, you're the mayor the next day. There wasn't even a campaign. There wouldn't have been anything. This person wouldn't.
No vetting.
No, that's not right. That's not the way government should work. And so I had voiced my concern about that I just wasn't sure that's what Stillwater needed. And my son, do it, Mom. Do it. And it started being, we kind of joked about it. He would say things like, do it, Mom. And he meant it. And he got Kevin, who was his coach at some point, and Kevin Fowler was our very good friend. Kevin started saying it. Chris started saying it. And I thought, you know what? This is really uncomfortable, and there's no way. I've never thought about doing this, and it felt so uncomfortable, I did it. And that goes back to what I started out saying. Just when you see things that are uncomfortable, or not appealing, because city government was just really never appealing to me in a way that would have made me think about it. You never know. And now I changed my life. It changed the way I think about things, changed the way I work with people, changed the way I think about my city, and it changed. I love my city even more now than I did. And it's because I got involved. And so get involved. Everybody should get involved in some way.
So what were some of the issues that I think the expansion of the airport, the American Airlines?
The airport wasn't here. American Airlines came here while I was mayor, but I do not take credit for that, because that's a bunch of people that worked, including myself, as a city councilor. So I don't care about taking the credit, but the things that happened on my watch were also because of John Bartley, former mayor. Shout out to you, John.
Was the issue of closing Hall of Fame for football games during your time, or was it before? It may have been
No, that was before. I didn't have, and that was, more.
And you had to work with the university.
I had to work, and it was hard to know. There was no playbook or rule book, and nobody had done this before that I know of that was a professor that went on to city council. But Joe Weaver was our executive vice president at that time. And so, he's my boss here. And I didn't even know him. But then I started working with him there. And I have to say, I know why OSU hired him. I really like Joe. And he was good for city council as well. And he was a good bridge. You have to have a bridge. It's not the city versus OSU. And I heard that a lot when I first started even thinking about anything. It's not. We all live here together. I keep looking at the camera because I'm used to doing it when I want to get my point across. We are all Stillwater. OSU depends on Stillwater, and Stillwater depends on OSU. We are a family, and I approached everything that way. I didn't like hearing, OSU ruined this and they run everything. It's just not true. When OSU makes decisions, I think they make really good decisions based on what's best for the university, of course, but also what's best for Stillwater. They really helped bring that airport here. I will say, had it not been for OSU, we wouldn't have that airport. No way. So, if we had to close Hall of Fame or do whatever, I trusted the leadership. And maybe, I don't even think that's naive to say because I went through it, so I can say, look in hindsight, the leadership did good things on both sides. But it's a two-way street. And we just don't really have room in city government or we shouldn't have room in city government for people who don't feel that way. Because it doesn't work if you fight against each other. It works a lot better when you're a team.
I think, and the other more recent thing was the scooter issue.
And I wasn't on for that, darn it. That was kind of a funny issue, but they had to talk about that a lot, and there was a lot of discussions because on campus, and I watched some of the meetings, and I guess I'm glad I wasn't here for that one. But again, that was OSU and the city of Stillwater working together. Yeah. Absolutely. So,
So you were elected what month of 2015? It was
April. April. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe my first day as mayor was the 1st of May. I can't remember how it fell, but I think I was elected. Well, it probably says up there, but somewhere. My eyes aren't good enough to see it, but April. So.
And that was. I'm thinking all of your classes that you taught and courses and things came in handy for campaigning.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, no, I didn't touch. I kept it completely separate. I didn't even talk about it. But the students, right, and the students knew, and some people would talk about it. So I know the students knew what I was doing, and I had stickers, as I think said Noble for mayor, and a couple of the advisors had them, and they had their children handing them out, but we didn't do anything in the building because that's just not right, and didn't ever ask students to do anything. I think we tried to get students to register to vote, but who shouldn't try to do that? So everybody does that.
I'm just thinking your work experience and your education experience.
Yeah, it helped, absolutely. And what I had done for my life, yes, it definitely helped. I wasn't afraid to be in front of crowds, and I'm not the most eloquent speaker, but I can put a speech together and I can string things together, and I never say I'm the smartest person in the room, but I know how to surround myself with really smart people, and that helps. It helps.
And
Listening, yes. Listening and not judging, just listening, and then thinking about it for a while. Just step back and think about the consequences for both sides that are arguing this. How will it affect Stillwater, or how will it affect this group of people who don't want this or who do want this? That's always how I approached it, because I just didn't know how else to do it, and that seemed like the logical, simple thing to do, is to think about other people. It's not about myself. It really makes me angry when politicians, and I know that we elect them to represent us, but sometimes I think that they don't listen to their constituents once they're elected, and they listen to forces other than ordinary people. And I didn't have to do that here. I wouldn't have done that. I got to just listen to people. It's interesting.
Did you have to do a financial disclosure?
I did. And Kevin, being a banker, it was great that he was the treasurer and got to do all that for me, and I didn't have to. And I'm just a simple person who doesn't have, I don't have a lot, but I'm really proud of what I do have, and I don't wish for more because I'm happy. But
did you have to do it for both the council and
I did. Probably laughable if you looked at it, but I'm pretty sure I was one of the poorest members on both. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter. It matters about your ideas, and that you listen to other people and you do what's best for what you said you wanted to be elected for, which wasn't, for me, it wasn't to be called mayor. It was to help. It was easy.
And that's a 3-year term?
Yes, it's now I think we changed the terms to 4 now. 4 years.
And you didn't want to run it for a second term?
Well, I thought about it, but my son was graduating, and I had breast cancer. And I had breast cancer, I found out in June of 2016. So I'd been mayor. I'd been serving for 3 years at that time. That puts a lot of things in perspective. And so I was mayor until 2015 to 2018, and I had my cancer surgeries in 2016. But it does make you reevaluate everything and what you want to do, maybe. And I decided that even though I loved what I was doing, and I knew it would make me sad, truly make me sad, to leave it, I knew that there's just other things I want to do. And I knew there were other good people who could do it, So I was replaceable easily, and Will Joyce is doing a great job.
Maybe not easily replaceable, but replaceable.
Everybody can be replaced, and I was fortunate. I feel really good about when I stepped down and when I handed over the gavel. It felt really good to hand it to Will and to John and to Elaine and to Pat. They're good people, good hearts, and they have the best interest.
Well, do you want to talk about the breast cancer, how that
Sure.
discovery came about?
Yeah, that quite a story. As mayor, you have several other duties, and one of my other duties was I was a member of the hospital board of trustees. You're on several boards, and I won't be able to remember them all, but you are on, well, anyway, doesn't matter about all those boards you're on. I was a hospital board of trustees. The mayor is one of them, because the hospital is a public trust. And so it interested me that I was able to do that, because I'd worked for hospitals before and I liked healthcare. But anyway, I went on, and I started the minute I started as mayor. I have to start going to the once a month board meetings, and there was one other female on that board, and myself, and a bunch of people I just really, I'm still friends with them today. I really respect them and like them and trust them. I can say that because I know them now. I guess it was maybe the June 2016 board meeting. I was there. And their PR person, Shyla Evers, I think, or maybe their new CEO. I got to go through selecting a new CEO for the hospital too. That was a side note, but I got to pick a city manager, and then I got to pick a CEO, and Denise. Of course, I'm not going to be able to. I'll remember it in a minute. Anyway, either the hospital CEO or the PR person asked me to stay after the meeting. We want to ask you something. And they'd just given a presentation. Our board meetings they always told us what was going on at the hospital and the new stuff. And we always had a presentation from someone. And that day's presentation was about the new 3D mammography machine. There was only one of 3 in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma City and Tulsa had one. And now Stillwater had one. It was a really big deal because we're so much smaller. And how it worked, and they just told us about it. And I thought, wow, what and that it could detect so much earlier. Anyway, so we heard that presentation, and then afterwards they said, okay, so do you get mammographies every year? And I said, yes. And I said, in fact, I'm due. I'm probably a few months behind, but yes, I need to schedule one. And they said, well, you're easy to go on camera, and would you mind doing this as a public service announcement? Would you go on camera and let us follow you with the camera and do a mammogram with our new 3D mammography from beginning to end? We won't show, but it would be really important, and you're the perfect age, and I said, absolutely, of course I will. And I think I went the next Friday. I remember I was going to the Colvin. I was doing yoga with my friend Chris, and we were walking on the treadmills. And I remember going home and getting showered and everything, and going to do this because I was happy to do it because it could save women's lives. And walked in there, and it was called Periscope. So Shyla was holding a camera, and they were just following me. And there's this app or program called Periscope that would do a live feed, so people could maybe look on Periscope on the app, and like Facebook Live now. And she followed me around, and I got dressed, and I came out. I had the thing on, but I remember talking to them for a minute and saying, okay, I'm going to go in here now. And they were explaining on the camera, she's going to go in there, and this is what's going to happen. And they went in with the camera first and showed the difference between 3D and other, and showed, did some of that, so women could really understand how it was different. And anyway, I went in and I did it, and it didn't feel much different, really, to be quite honest. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to go out here. I know they're on the other side of the door when I come out, and they're going to ask me, and it didn't feel that different. But the difference is the camera, and the image is so much better. And so I walked out, and I thought, okay, got my mammogram over for the year, check. And they said, since you're the mayor, they're going to read your stuff right now. Now, don't tell anyone we're doing this, but the radiologist is there, so we can just get all of this on film. And so we walk over, because I was at the women's clinic, and you just walk across the street and you can go into the back of the hospital. So I walked with them over there, and we were talking and joking and laughing, and it was hot outside, and they said, just sit here for a minute. And it was just like in a waiting room of the hospital, just where anybody would sit, and sat there for a minute. I think I was on my phone. I think I was telling Chris I'm going to be late to a class, and my son was on a study abroad in Europe. And I sat there for a minute and I got off my phone and I thought, where are they? I don't have all day. You know, and then I thought, wait a minute, where are they? And it kind of hit me that, whoa, I don't know. I'm always so paranoid. And pretty soon they came out, and the minute they came out, I knew by the radiologist's face. I knew. And I got tears in my eyes, and they hadn't said a word to me, and I knew. And they said, come back here with us. And on camera, they told me I had breast cancer. And all I thought about was my son. And that I could not tell him. He was too young. He was a freshman in college. And I'm a single mom. And, you know, every thought that any one of you would think about, I had those thoughts. And I thought, you know, why me? And I don't have this in my family, and it's wrong. And no, they made a mistake. And then they showed me and said, and told me what I needed to do next, which was a biopsy. And just hearing those words, I said, okay. And I went home and I fell apart. And I had to go be mayor, and I had to, you know, I had to do everything else. And I knew I knew it was serious, because I was going to have a biopsy. And, you know, you can say prayers and you can think whatever you want, but my mom called me, and, you know, I'm pretty sure I was crying to her, and she said, you know what? We're going to go on a little vacation. When do you have to do this? And I said, Mom, I cannot go on vacation. I cannot do this and that. She said, well, you're going. Meet me in Vegas. And I met my mom in Vegas. And we had 5 fun days where I tried not to think about. And I flew home on a Monday, and I had that biopsy on a Tuesday morning. And my friend Chris Fowler went with me. And the worst part about it is the wait. Because you still have to wait for them to send it off somewhere in another state, and you wait for 3 days to find out if you have cancer when, you know, you've already worried about it for several weeks. And then they called me back to their office, and I knew. And so I cried for a few days, and I decided I had to tell my son, and he's still in England, and I needed to be mom, and I needed to be strong, and to get over myself, and to quit crying, and get on with it. So I cried in private, but in public, I did not shed another tear, and I had to be strong for Braxton, and for everything else, but for me, I had to be strong for me. When it came back, and they said it was very early, detected very early, and the radiologist said, had this been on a regular x-ray, I may not have seen this. So, because I was mayor, I took a mammogram that I might not have taken that kind. It saved my life. Or it saved me a lot of heartache, because mine was discovered so early that I was stage. Some people called it stage 0. Some people called it stage 1. My doctors called it stage 1. I still had to see an oncologist. He called it stage 1. I kept correcting him and calling it stage 0. I had to go to so many doctors. That's what you don't think about. When people get diagnosed, there are so many other appointments you have to go to that you don't want to go to. And so, just if you're listening to this and it's 10, 15, 50 years later, I hope they've cured cancer. But if they haven't, think about what the person has to do. It's not just going and having the surgery. It's a lot more. And it's devastating. It is devastating. but you get stronger. And I decided for me, they told me I would have to have it removed and I would have a lumpectomy. And I have many, many friends who have had lumpectomies. And some of those friends it's come back on. And some of those friends aren't here. And some are. And one of my best friends in college went through it and almost died. And she had a lumpectomy. And she's still my good friend. But we hadn't really connected in many years because we got busy working and raising kids. And for me, I decided I'm going to get a double mastectomy. That's what I want to do. I won't have to worry about, do I have breast cancer every morning when I wake up, because unfortunately that's how my mind works. I can't deal with things like that. I need to take care of problems and not just wonder. And so for me, I told my insurance, and they said, no, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to have a lumpectomy. And then I got mad. And I started fighting. And I started calling people I knew. And figuring out how to fight against the insurance company, which nobody should have to do. OSU helped me. And OSU. And Joe Weaver told me who to call at OSU. He was not on council anymore. I was the mayor. He was not on by that time, but he's still here at OSU. And he said, you talk to this person and this person. And all of a sudden, it took 2 weeks for the insurance to say anything. So I worried for 2 weeks what I was going to do, thinking, I want this cancer out of me. That's all you think about. Once you know you have it in you, you just want it out. I had to wait 7 weeks to get it out because insurance fought. And then I discovered that if I wanted to have the surgery in Stillwater, which I did, I trusted, I was a board member, I trusted these surgeons, and this was my home. But I wanted to have a mastectomy and to have a rebuild right then, and that's not what most people do. And then I asked, well, is it unheard of? Well, no, but most people don't do it. But could I do it? Well, yeah, but Stillwater doesn't have plastic surgery, so you can't do it here. And I said, well, then we won't do it here. Where can we do it? And I found a surgeon here, Kara Pence, whom I love dearly. She was going to do my surgery for me. She helped me so much through this. She's much younger than I am. But I could talk to her about anything. And one of her best friends was a breast fellow and a breast surgeon fellow in Tulsa. And she said, you should have her do your surgery. And that way you could get a plastic surgeon and maybe they could work together and you would only have to have one surgery. Because if I do it here, you have to wait 3 days, get in a car, go have another surgery. And I said, I'm not having 2 surgeries. And I don't have time. And I'm not going to have my breast rebuilt a little bit at a time like so many women do. And that's great for everybody who makes that decision. But it wasn't right for me. How would I be mayor and be a full professor here and and a mom? I couldn't do it. I needed it all done at once. And I found the people to do it in Tulsa. And they said, we don't do this much, but we'll do it. And so I rebuilt to feel normal in my clothes because I felt like so much was being taken away from me and my identity was different at that point. And so I rebuilt for me and to feel better under my clothes. And it was hard. I had 244 stitches. I have a scar from almost the middle of my back all the way around my body to the other side of my back where they took my breast and put artificial breast on me. I couldn't lift my arms for a long time. There's just all kinds of things that you can't do or you'll make them. You'll face another surgery, and I sure didn't want that. Anyway, I came back to work at 6 weeks. My boss really didn't want me to. I needed to do it. And my boss was the best. He was, his grandmother went through it. He knew if you go through it or you see someone go through it, you just know that there's a little bit more to it than anything you've ever heard. So anyway, I came back to work slowly but surely, and I had great support from everybody here. And I came back to posters that you can see behind you from students signing it. And I wished that everybody after their surgery could come back to something like this because it's so important. And I didn't want to feel special that way. I wish people didn't have to go through it. But you come through it and you become an advocate. And you go sit with people when they have their test because they're scared. And you hold their hand. That's all you can do. But
and educate.
You educate people, and I try to every chance I get to say 3D mammography over anything else because I really do. There's a big difference, and it costs a little bit more, and some insurance companies don't cover it. I would like to get mad about that, and one of these days I might do something like that if I ever feel that change of career or something like that. It will be to advocate for something like breast cancer.
State legislature. I don't know if that's the route you would take to
change. I don't know. I've thought about all kinds of things like that. I don't know that I'm political material. I don't think I'm made up for that.
You have to have a pretty tough skin, that thing.
I think you have to have a really tough skin, but I think sometimes you compromise too much of yourself, and I'm not willing to compromise my ethics or my integrity. I'm just not. That's where I draw the line. I'm just not. I don't have much in this world, but I have those things, and I'm not giving those up. So I'm not going to sell my soul to get reelected. I'm just not. And I think, well, my opinion, personal opinion only, a lot of them do. And you should stop it.
Well, you didn't have to have chemo or radiation.
I did not because
zero,
I had to have
0 or 1.
Well, I was going to have both. They won't tell you don't have to have it, or that if you have your breast removed, because it could be in your lymph nodes. So they told me that they may not be able to do the surgery the way I want it, because when they go in and look, if I had a bunch in my lymph nodes, then it would change everything, and I wouldn't have my fake breast put on that day. I would have had to do other things. And so guess what I did when I woke up from that surgery? The first thing I did was this, to see if they did my surgery. And of course, you know what? I couldn't feel because I was just a big bandage and I was numb. And that's another thing you don't know about cancer and surgeries like this is you're numb the rest of your life wherever they do that. So I'm numb. I don't feel things that other people feel on my body, and it's weird, and it's just part of it. But they took 3 lymph nodes, so there was some concern, obviously, or they would have taken 1. They have to keep cutting into you to see how far down it would go. So I think They took 3, and then I was told that I did not, because they took 3 and they were all clean. Then they have to send those away. So you wait again. Mm-hmm. And you're waiting, and you're, thinking about your surgery, and it was a hard surgery, very hard surgery. You just want to recover. So it could have been so much worse for me. I have angels, so I do. And anyway, early detection is key. It's key, because I did not have to go through what so many men and women have to go through. And I'm thankful for that every day. That, yep, I had breast cancer, and yes, it sucked, and it still sucks, and life is still not the same, and life is better, and I still remember it every single day when I take a shower, when I brush myself the wrong way, or just hit something. Reminders every day, and reminders how blessed I am, and reminders that early detection gives you choices. And that's what I say when I advocate. I had choices so many women don't. I had the choice to, because I detected it so early, I didn't have to have those things that cause you so many complications. For the rest of your life, chemo and radiation cause you complications, and anybody that's had it would agree with me. I've talked to too many people, but I'm blessed, and but I had to go through it for a reason, and I choose to think that the reason was to help other people. So.
Good role model there.
Yeah.
That was in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, you ready to switch gears into the other? What had happened the October 2015?
Yeah, I am. So,
you had a busy term as mayor is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Reason enough not to want to do it again, too.
Yeah.
You were Grand Marshal of the Homecoming Parade.
Yes.
2015.
Which I thought was a silly decision on the OSU alumni. I was really shocked that they would choose me, and I didn't really want to do it, but I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and they had selected me, and I thought, Gina Noble or Barry Sanders, or all these wonderful people who had done it before me and who will do it after me. And who's Gina Noble? I thought about all that, and I don't care. I'll do it, and because I'm single, I'm not married. I made my son ride in the car with me, and he did it willingly, but I was the Grand Marshal. So, that day I really prepared. I was so, I guess, just honored to have a role.
Waving.
Yeah, just to have a role in this. So I really, I did everything I could to prepare, and I was going to be the Grand Marshal, and then I had to come back and lead the palm in a cheer when they started their kickoff of the walk. There's a lot of things to do that day. And then to be on the field, I was going to announce the winners of the homecoming floats, and a lot to do, and I had to prepare, and I had to go learn things through the Alumni Association, and it was an honor, and I was a really new mayor. I hadn't even been mayor a year yet. And anyway, so we were told where to meet, where to go that day, and get in the car, and we're in with Larry Reese, which if you're from anywhere in Oklahoma State or, Stillwater, or even further, anywhere in Oklahoma, you know who Larry Reese is. And Larry had not, he had been through cancer, but I digress on that. But, anyway, I got to be in his car. I got to meet him. I got to do all these really cool things. My son got this opportunity to sit in the car, and we practiced how to wave, and we were assured. all you'll do is wave because the marching band is right behind you. You're the lead car, but they're right there. And so you can't hear anything anyway. You're just going to be saying, go Pokes, and, all that good stuff. Somehow, the OSU marching band got delayed in their takeoff. It wasn't their fault. They were not right behind my car. And so Braxton and I, truly, this was really uncomfortable. We were driving on Main Street really by ourselves. And people were just kind of looking at us like, hi. And they didn't know who I was. And so Braxton and I are both saying, go Pokes, go Cowboys, with as much enthusiasm as we could muster. But when everybody's just staring at you, there's no excitement because there's no, they were waiting for the parade. A car with a woman and a student in it is not a parade. And anyway, so we're finished first. That's the way it was. And we take the Hall of Fame. It was Miller. We turned on Miller from Main Street, and he brought me, and Larry was supposed to bring Braxton and I back to the Alumni Center, which is right across the street. And I was supposed to wait there until the parade got done, and then we would do the palm, the kickoff to the walk or whatever that was. My building is so close. We're sitting in my office right now, and I'm right across from the Alumni Center, and I have work to do. And so I thought, well, instead of sitting over there, I'm going to come over here and work in my office. And I guess I can say this now because he's already graduated. So my son was in a fraternity, but he was a pledge at that time. And he was in the parade with me, but he was never, pledges weren't really allowed to take time off or sleep. So he came and he slept on my floor, in this hard floor right here, and I worked. And then I got a call from someone saying, are you okay? And she sounded really concerned. I said, yeah, I'm in our building. What are you talking about? It was one of my colleagues. And she said, you haven't heard? And then my phone started ringing. And it was a bunch of people. And I said, Braxton, wake up. Something's happened. We've got to get over there. And I tried to call the city manager, and I couldn't get a hold of him. So I thought, okay, Mayor, what are you going to do? You're in this building right now. You think something's going on. I thought, I'm going to call the chief or the public safety officer. His name was Norman McNichol. Norman McNichol is now the city manager. Norman McNichol was in Denver on a vacation, but I trusted him with everything I had from the minute I met him, and I didn't know him that well. But I trusted him, and I called him. And I said, Norman, I don't know what to do. And he said, Gina, I'm not there, and I don't know what to do. Let's figure this out together. And I said, I can't get a hold of Dan. That was our city manager. And he said, we're going to do this together. And so we sat right here on this phone, and we talked about what we should do. He was, I'm sure, driving. He was driving, so I'm sure it was faster than normal to get back here. And I said, Norman, I think I just need to go to City Hall. And he said, you do. I think that's where you need to go to. You just go to City Hall, and you sit there and you wait. And he said, you've got your swipe card to get in. So when you're a city councilor or the mayor, they had this swipe card that you could get into the building at any time. And there was a swipe thing on the outside. I had never once used it. I mean, none of us had ever used it. We don't go during off hours, really, to City Hall. We never had. But it was, I don't really know what time it was. 10 o'clock in the morning? I'm not for sure what time this all happened. I don't remember all of that. I just know it was an early parade. And so, by the time, and probably only 5 minutes had passed since I found out, you could start hearing things out here. I could hear people. It was getting loud and more crowded. People knew. I mean, you could tell people knew something. And I started hearing helicopters. And that's not normal for Stillwater, except maybe on game days, but not really normal. And I was parked out in the Student Union parking lot, and it was game day out there. And if you know what game day is, you can't get out of there. You can't move. And so my son and I decided, all right, we've got this. I needed to be on my phone because it was ringing off the hook. My son got me in the car. We got in the car, in my car parked out here. We had someone helping us to move the people. My son drove me out of here and drove me to City Hall while I'm on the phone. Nobody was at City Hall when we got there. I mean, it was a Saturday morning, and that's always, there's nobody there. And there's two parts to City Hall. There's the police area, and then there's attached to it is City Hall. And so I thought, I'm going to use my swipe card. Norman had reminded me, and my swipe card wouldn't work. I couldn't get in. And I was trying to get in where I would usually go in for city council meetings. And I'm standing there, and Braxton's saying, well, Mom, you're doing it wrong. We're trying. And my phone's ringing, and I tell Braxton, you answer the phone, and you tell them, put them on hold, tell them you're my son, that you're answering for the mayor, and I will be with them in a minute. And I'm still trying. And we turned around, because at some point I knew this wasn't working, and we turned around to walk down these little stairs, and we were going to walk over to where the police were, where the police lobby was, because I was going to go in there. And when we turned around, there were probably 5 cars all of a sudden there, and it was all reporters. I mean, they were doing their job. The media does its job. And in my world, the media is not fake news. So they were there, and they wanted to know, and I didn't know anything. But I did know at that point, because I had Norman on the phone with me. And I just told all these reporters who shoved cameras and microphones in my face. And I don't even know how they knew who I was, except someone must have pointed out, oh, that's the mayor. I don't know. Anyway, I couldn't make a statement because I didn't know anything, but I knew, and I know from my job here teaching my students, you don't say no comment, and you don't say, you don't say no comment. So I told them in my best voice, just from my training and from training students, I do not know what's going on, but as soon as I know, I'm going to tell you. I promise you, we will have a press conference, and we will have it right outside, right here. And I don't know if it's 30 minutes, I don't know if it's an hour, because I don't know what's going on yet. And by this time, helicopters are really flying. And I said, I promise, you set up for a press conference, we will have one. I got on the phone. I called everybody on city council. Still couldn't get a hold of the city manager. By the way, he was gone the February after this. And Norman McNichol was hired as the city manager. I tried to get into the police lobby. I couldn't get in there with my swipe card. It's kind of funny when you think about it now. And at that point, I was thinking, I want to get away from the reporters because I didn't know what to say. And I knew what to say. I knew I had to say, I don't know. And then the PIO, the public information officer, was working on a Saturday morning. He's a police officer as well, Kyle Gibbs. And he should be talked to, by the way, if he hasn't been. He ran out and saw me at the door and let me in. And we started working together. And so my son's answering my phone. He's on the phone. He's walking and talking. Both of our phone, well, his phone was the police line, but my phone was CNN and Fox and LA. And I mean, you can see it on your phone. And all of these news stations were calling. They must have looked up and they got my number off of the website. I'm assuming that's how most people would do it. And they were calling me, and they were probably calling all the police too, and I didn't know. And I was saying, every answer I had was, I will get back with you. We're having a press conference. So I could sit down with Kyle, and by that time we got city councilors, and Kyle had more people coming in. And we wrote, it was so chaotic. It was a Saturday. The whole building was locked up. It wasn't, I didn't have anything with me. I was still dressed in things I was wearing for the homecoming parade that I wouldn't normally just walk around in. I was an OSU billboard with OSU gloves, everything, and I just, I got in a trash can, and I got old papers that were thrown away, and I uncrumpled them, and I found a pen, and that's how we wrote out what we were going to do at the press conference, and who was going to speak, and who needed to speak, and what were we going to say. And we didn't have any time to type anything up, hand people what they were going to say. These people in Stillwater, these people that work for government, they just knew. They were good. And we did have that press conference, and 4 of us spoke. And at that point, we didn't even know if OSU was going to have the game. We were talking about, should we have the game? OSU was talking about it. And Burns Hargis came. He was part of the OSU president. And his wife came, and they were part of the press conference with police, fire, emergency, and myself. And I remember everybody talking about should we, shouldn't we, and it was OSU's call, of course, and it wasn't our decision. But I just remember them talking about it, and finally, the decision, yes, we're having it because people need to grieve and need to be together, and you send everybody here away, just, it would be a nightmare, and plus we need grieving and blah, blah, blah. And so we did that. And then we all said, okay, we're going to meet. It was weird to leave each other, really, right after that press conference, because that's really when by the time the press conference happened, and I'm not really for sure, but you could go back and look at the footage. I think someone had died, and we knew it by that time. I think we knew about the little boy, too. So we talked about we will go to the game. We would all meet in the suite that we were going to be in anyway because it was homecoming, and the mayor's invited to certain things, and the city council. We were all going to be together, and all of the OSU officials. And I just remember none of us watched the game. I mean, I don't know that anybody. We were all on our phones the whole time, working. We didn't know where people were taken to hospitals, the ambulances, the life flights. We had, I think, 11 touchdown. I'm not for sure on that. It could have been 9 too. Where were they taking everybody? And we didn't have names, and it was chaos until we figured it out. And we were working on that. We were working on what to say. We were working on so much more than I even realized. The OSU officials were all up there too, and everybody was on their phone, sitting in a corner, sometimes not even in a chair, just all these really important people who have really important jobs at this university. It's just different to see them that way because they were really sad. Anyway, we knew we had to be professional and to get it done, and to get it done in a way that we wouldn't be criticized publicly. It was a national media event. We knew that. And we didn't have anything on the city website at that point. And I didn't know what to put. I mean, I couldn't get a hold of the city manager. So I just... we went to the game, we did our jobs. A few of us split off and were helping the hospital. And the hospital employees, but they were awesome too. Everybody over there. Because people were worried about their loved ones and where they were. And so that was the thing we had to do that night. We had to figure out, we had to release a list. We knew we did. And then a list of the injured. And, there's just a certain way you need to do it that is compassionate. And you need to be correct, you have to be correct. So I remember going home and working on that and being bothered that we still didn't have anything on the city website. And so I wrote this, and this went on the city website. I have to find it, sorry. I saved it yesterday. Okay. Yesterday began as a celebration in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We were welcoming home thousands of loyal and true Oklahoma State University alumni and fans for America's greatest homecoming celebration. As the Grand Marshal of the Homecoming Parade, I, along with my son Braxton, had the honor of being one of the first cars to lead the parade. We saw thousands of smiling faces and heard so many nice comments along the way. Everybody was quick to make the go pokes, pistols firing, hand gestures. Everybody was kind. Everybody was happy. We were celebrating life in Stillwater, and we were celebrating OSU. We were celebrating friendships and family and the cowboy spirit. And then the unthinkable happened. As the mayor, I saw the tragedy unfold, but I saw so much more. I saw the faces and the hearts and the expertise and the professionalism of our first responders. Stillwater Police Department, Stillwater Fire Department, City of Stillwater Emergency Management Agency, Sheriff's Department, and I could go on and on. Oklahoma National Guard and Oklahoma Highway Patrol. I am so proud of their work and know the tragedy would have been so much worse had they not been participating in and helping to manage the parade. These men and women were leaders. They were heroes yesterday. The doctors and the nurses and the staff at Stillwater Medical Center were heroes. 2. I also witnessed remarkable leadership from Oklahoma State University and the Oklahoma State University Alumni Association. The City of Stillwater, Stillwater City Council, and Oklahoma State University are working together. We are mourning together. We extend our deepest sympathies to the victims and their families. Our hearts are heavy. We are family. We are a team. And we are Stillwater strong. I read that yesterday after 5 years? Almost.
It's been
4.
2015.
And I did the same thing I'm doing now. It's hard.
How long did it take to wrap that? You just
10 minutes. 10.
Your
Took longer to edit to make sure I spelled everything correctly.
Your communication background helped in that regard.
But everybody needed to feel like a team and that we were together and not alone. It was just so, it was hard. I hope no one ever has to do that again. And after yesterday, we had 2 mass shootings in America again, in the United States of America. So it hit me really hard thinking about those and such tragic events. And then this, a tragic event. But we're always going to remember the 4 lost. I am. We have a park now for them to remember them. Mental health is so important, and Stillwater stronger because of it.
Well, the days that followed, were there some things you had to do as mayor?
Yeah. I had to speak at the memorial in Gallagher Arena with President Hargis And I prepared for that. In the only way I knew how, which was just to think about it and to write something down so I could read something. And I do remember that the city of Stillwater, the communications department at the city, I wrote it and then they helped me. They added some stuff because, there was just things I couldn't remember or that they thought I needed to say. And that's how communication works. That's what you're supposed to do with your communications people is check. And so they really helped with that. But and I worked with Gary Shutt, who was the communications person here at OSU, and with Burns and with Ann. And what you don't prepare for is when I got there, they were busing people. You had to meet in the West Watkins Center, and they were busing people to Gallagher-Iba on that evening. It was an evening, I think. And I met, and the victims' families were there. And I rode on the bus with the mom who lost her child. And I just decided when I get up there to speak, I'm just thinking about her. She was so young. And he was so young. And you just don't have words for that. Or I don't. But that broke my heart. And that was before the speech. But then getting there, what you're not prepared for. So when I got up on stage, all the victims were right there. And I didn't want to be up on the stage. I wanted them to be up there. It was about them. And I just knew they were grieving in ways that we don't even understand until you go through it. That was hard. It was really, really gut-wrenchingly hard. Because words don't matter to someone who's just lost someone, But we needed to do it for the community as well as for them to show them. It was really hard. That would be something I hope I never have to do again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Stillwater Strong. Was that your?
No, I don't even remember where it started. I had already heard it that day when I wrote that.
It became,
yeah, that was a big thing. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm an emotional person. Try not to think. I don't lead with emotions, but this is just very emotional. So,
did the city change like any ordinances or anything like that after?
We had to change everything about, well, not everything. We had to change the way the parade was done. There was always safety precautions in place. There were always things like that. We had to change that, and I'm really not at liberty to really talk. It's probably better if I don't. But that homecoming parade is very safe now, and nobody can guarantee safety all the time, but measures were put in place, and again, OSU and the city of Stillwater had to work together to put those measures in place, and I think it took about a year to know what we were going to do before the next year, and it was police and fire and emergency and
Was there ever a point when they thought they wouldn't have it in 2016?
No.
So it's just what are we going to do to make it safer?
I never remember one person saying, we're not having that. It's easy to think that way, but then once you hear it in your head, you think, no, I'm not letting it act of evil do this. I'm not. And so I know I probably thought that. I know I did. But then it was great to hear other people didn't think that either. I mean, no, we're just going to make it safer, but it's a really expensive endeavor, very expensive. It was before. But it's something that we think is really important to bring people together, and so does OSU, and OSU participates with us in every step now. So,
is that expense shared by both?
Yes.
Somehow.
To some degree, yes.
Well, the decision to have 3 riderless horses and a pony riderless, was that part of? I mean, I don't know who would make that sort of.
No, that was a donor who had a vision, and this was a good gateway. It's a good entrance, to campus, and so. For years, we lived out here with just grass. I'm thrilled that we have that out here now. I know everybody has different views about what it is, what it means to them, and all the words of the OSU song and all that. But to me, it's about resiliency and about you can change anything you want to change. You just have to find a way to do it. And they turned something that was ordinary into something beautiful out there. But the riderless horses, they can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And it does.
For the parade, it was touching.
Yep.
In 2016,
yep.
They did that.
Mm-hmm. A lot was put into that parade. It was all about honoring the parade before that.
Well, at what point do you remember visiting the site for the first time where it all happened after the fact?
I did it the next week because I had to do an interview, and people had laid balloons. It's so much stuff right there that it started being just a kind of a stop where people stop and take pictures. And I will say after the first week, I didn't drive that way for a long time. It was probably the next semester before I did it again. It's you just see things that trigger things that make you sad, and I'm genuinely a happy person, and this was just really, really hard. It was.
Well, and once they started the organization to work toward the memorial, was the mayor involved in some of that?
A little bit, but really that was Scott Petty. I mean, the mayor okays things and puts things in place.
And
I was thrilled that they did that. And the city had to decide where it went. We had to talk about all that and where we had to go. I mean, just, yes. I mean, it wasn't just me, though. It was always, it was all of city council and all of city government that, thought about these things.
I think the city council might have to do a new ordinance or something that gives rezones or whatever the space where they put the memorial.
Right.
Possibly.
I guess if anything would ever, they could have to rezone. But I don't know now that I'm not involved like I used to be, so I don't know everything that they're working on, and I don't think that's part of anything they're working on, but.
And did you have to say something at halftime if you thought you were going to?
I had to announce the winners, but I didn't say anything else. But I had to announce the winners of the homecoming. Yeah.
So were you weren't down in the bowl part? You were up in the suite for the most of the game. For most of the game, yeah. I bet then I was down. Was there a different feel?
Yeah, it was that because I've been down in the bowl and I've been up in suites to watch games, and it wasn't even close to being the same. Not in our suite anyway. And I didn't really walk around that day. I wasn't out walking around because people mingle up in the suites and see each other, and we didn't do that. We couldn't. We have strong people here, though, and.
How did your day end? Do you remember how your day ended? Yeah, I'm sure you stayed.
Falling asleep on the couch with my computer on my lap with my son saying, "Mom, wake up, go to bed. Norman's calling you." So on the phone. We were on the phone day and night then for weeks. But anyway, I think the last call I had that night was about, I think we had maybe figured out where everybody was sent to. Because that's scary when you don't know. So,
and whose ultimate responsibility is that the mayor's, or is that, I guess, public safety maybe instead of?
Yeah, it was. Public safety, yeah, we'll put it in that category, and the city manager, guided everything like that. But Norman, well, he was here by that time. He was not the city manager at that time.
So was there already a protocol set, let's say, for something like this was to happen?
No, but there is
now. Yeah.
There is now, yes. We have a crisis communication plan now. It's one of the classes I teach actually now. In fact, I taught it this semester with Gary Shutt, and we taught it together for a reason, because we were both part of the OSU Homecoming tragedy. He represented OSU, I represented the city, so we taught it together, and I think it was a great class. I think he did too, but common experience, which neither one of us want, but we have it.
Plus, you would have been on staff for the 2 plane crashes as well.
Yes,
I mean, different.
I was brand new for the first one. When was that? 2001? 1999?
I want to think one was
2002. Okay, I can't. Yeah,
I was here too, but my memory's not.
I moved here in 99. That was 2002. Yeah.
We've had enough sadness, and then 2011 was.
So, yeah, we kind of have a guide in place of who does what, and anyway, I know if we had another tragedy, that Stillwater's in good hands. Truly, I hope we don't ever.
Would still probably ring a lot saying, "What did you do, Gina?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how these things are everywhere with us now. So, but that's how you have to. That's city government too. I mean, we're all accessible by that. I gave out my number on the city website to people. They could call me. It was not always pleasant, but most of the time it was.
Well, there again, this whole situation was your background was you were the right person.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't, you question. I don't know. I was able to do the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. And keep it pulled together in public.
Yeah, and keep it pulled together in public. And hopefully show some compassion.
Did that incident play into your not wanting to run again? Or
No,
you just wanted to
no. It was that, and then the next year breast cancer.
So what happened your third year?
In between that, we fought oil and gas, and we won. And I don't know. I think that third year was pretty uneventful, really, which was welcome. So
probably constantly was trying to, how can we get downtown more vibrant?
Yes, that's when Block 34 and all of that. That's when all of that started. So anyway, so my students are now helping on a project with some of the city councilors for Block 34 and for Mary Main Street. It's a Christmas thing, so I'm taking it on as a project to help them. So.
Decorate or what?
No, to get shoppers downtown and to help merchants. So I always want to help any way I can. Sometimes it's better not to be in public office and do it this way, but it's my town. My town, yeah. And it teaches young people how to get involved. I think that's important.
So going forward, in the next, say, 5 years, what are you seeing for yourself? Are you even thinking that far ahead?
Well, my son just graduated and moved out of state, so I'm reevaluating everything. I was a single mom almost his whole time that I raised him, so it's quite different for me this now. I don't have the commitments that I did, and that's exciting, and I want to travel, but I also want to help, and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. Can I say that?
You can say that.
I don't know. I'm open.
You're open.
I'm open to new things because that keeps us young, or semi-young, but it keeps me alive.
You have a PhD.
Yeah.
President.
Yeah. No. I have been asked to run for state and for Congress. I don't know how. I think I was a pool of people.
Well, that's a whole different level.
It's a whole level of
fundraising for one thing, and gosh, your constituents would size-wise would triple or more.
I wasn't ready for that because I don't want to.
So today, what do you consider a highlight? What?
A highlight of
your career
of anything?
Of anything. Besides having a son, because that's all.
Sure. Definitely being in public service and allowing myself to put myself out there and to try to get elected. That's definitely a highlight. It changed me for the better, for sure. It made all of the things that I really value more important, like compassion and listening and integrity and truthfulness. It made all of those things more important because I saw it wasn't hard to do. Yes, that was a comment to all politicians. It's not that hard to do if you put others above yourself. It is not hard to do. And I'm not even saying I did that, but nationally, you're going to have to put others above yourself, and until they can figure out how to do that, I don't know.
And taking no for an answer is not acceptable a lot of times.
Right.
Insurance says no, well, we'll see.
No, yeah. There's always another way. You have to figure it out, and there's always a way to do it. And, I think that maybe it shaped me that way. I'm certainly not an aggressive person, but I am a persistent person. Assertive, kind of. I've learned to be more assertive, much more assertive, and I've learned how to say no. And I've learned how to not feel bad about that. And I wish I would have learned it 20 years ago.
You mentioned building bridges. That seems to be, in connecting, seems to have played a key.
It definitely. You can't do anything by yourself that's really of any worth. You have to have other people helping you do it because it just takes more than one person to do things. You've got to know how other people feel too. You've got to listen.
And you listened to your son when he said, "Do it, Mom."
I did listen to my son, and I wanted to be a good role model. I'd been a good mom. I knew that. I knew he was fine. He's an outstanding young man, but he didn't have a dad to really look up to. And so what a great way to be a role model was to do something that was just never probably even a part of my speech pattern when I was younger. So I did it for that too. And I really think it definitely opened his eyes. So I did my job.
And
So
then
I
gender's
got the
not a
benefit.
gender, that
No,
jobs are not gender specific.
they are not. And if I'm really proud that there were 3 women on it when I was there. There are still 3 women on it, and not that men don't do just as good of a job. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying that women didn't take that as a role, or didn't seem to thinking about that role. And I'm really proud they are now. I really am. So it takes all of us, and it takes rational people. You don't have to be a PhD to get things accomplished. You just have to know how to research, and you have to know how to communicate, and you need to know how to listen.
And no right or wrong.
Absolutely. You have to have that baseline ethics and integrity line where you're not going to, if you pass that, really, I mean, I just can't imagine. I wouldn't. Everybody has their line. That's my line. Everybody has their line in the sand. That's my line in the sand. There's some things you don't do. And for me, there's several things you don't do. Take responsibility for your kids, raise them, and give back to your community. And it gives so much more back to you. Truly. I'm the beneficiary, and I feel kind of guilty about that. I benefited a lot just because I got to meet so many great people and see what they do, and watch so many people in leadership positions, and it's all. I'm visual, so if I can see it, I can do it.
Well, all you can do is pay it forward, as they say.
Right,
So
right.
We've covered a lot. Anything
Yeah.
else you want to say before I ask my next question?
No, I don't think so.
I usually end with having people tell me how they want to be remembered. When history's written about you, what do you want it to say about Gina Noble?
That she was kind. And that I worked hard. And that I love my community. That would be enough for me.
Well, thank you for sharing today. It's
You're
been
welcome.
great.